All right. So I mean, you have heard, I'm focusing on decentralized technology for resurgence of Bharat. And I will explain. I will not get so much into technology, but lay out the case why regulation, our approach, and private public policy needs to change. And I will give examples. I have interacted with a lot of government secretaries, in charge, I'll say, through various roles. So I have a fairly good feel of India. I will summarize my punchline here. China, innovate, then regulate. And you can see they have allowed Tencent and Alibaba and Baidu and Pinduoduo, huge, large corporations. The value they generate is enormous. Now they're trying to regulate. So innovate, then regulate. EU is regulate, they never innovate. The amount, it's become like blood doesn't flow through the veins. Too many restrictions are applied. US is innovate, and then so much money goes into the wealth of the innovators and the lobby groups. They formulate the laws. There's no regulation. वो free हो जाता है उनका. And hardly any guy gets convicted. I mean, 2008 credit crisis, nobody got. So there is innovate, not regulate. This is a quote from a very astute Chinese blogger. She does a lot of technology. She's based in Shanghai. And of course, Bharat, I say we do none of this. We only do jugaad pe jugaad. And that's part of the cynicism I have on a lot of headline news. Ye kya, wo kya. We have gems, but we need to change a lot. So let me move forward. I will use examples of Hong Kong and Singapore, and I'm talking 1940 to 2060, to explain different ways. You can still get good performance by very different styles. There is no one roadmap. Despite what the New York Times or WhatsApp or the IMF may try to tell you, there is no playbook. They have no playbook for replicating success, etc. And a lot of it has to do with culture. Culture is a very important factor. Tools and technology have to enable culture to achieve something. So let me take an example. I've lived in Hong Kong and Singapore, made money in both places. So Hong Kong is very emergent. Hong Kong is a fine city in the sense that if the law does not say you cannot do X, you are fine to do X. Singapore is a fine city in the sense if you do anything which the law does not allow, you will get fined. So both are fine cities. The police is very visible in Hong Kong. I mean, the mobile all over the place. Police is hardly visible in Singapore. It's not that they're not effective. They have a very large informant network. So at late night, when the young Singaporean get on the two-wheelers, they do the drag race and all that. Within 10 minutes, the police will be there. Their informers tell them, somebody calls them. There are very different ways of housing. For example, Singapore has leaseholds. The government subsidizes and gives housing development board urban, 2 clusters. Singapore has no such thing. So there's a Discovery Way, which is an urban resort. You take half an hour across the bay, you take a boat, and it's a resort. And you have Mongkok, which is the most dense urban area I've ever seen, more than 1 lakh a square kilometer. The skyscrapers are very large. It has to be almost noon, only 5 to 10 minutes before noon, and after that the sun will hit the road. It is so dense and so clustered. One consequence of that is social distancing is impossible in Hong Kong. And that's part of what has hit them in COVID. So Hong Kong, and though there is a zero COVID philosophy that has been done by Beijing is in charge now, but they have had such an outbreak that they are now planning to do three cycles of testing for every resident in Hong Kong. They are not able to control it. Singapore also has had issues with COVID. They did all that thing, but they forgot about dormitories. Lot of urban migrant workers were there. Breakout ho gaya. So results are not always good. Both sides, highly controlled, normative, and completely free, also have failed. One of the things I will talk about is the variation in which market solves problems. So Hong Kong has a very unusual approach to transportation. They have trams, they have ferries, and the Shim Sha Tsui tram is the best joyride. I mean, it used to be $1, probably $5 now, across the sea. But there are 3 types of buses. And this is an example in India. I was consulting the Smart City Mission parking car RFP, and I told them, single line of thinking, you have to allow. So disabled people who want to park every day when they're working, so long-term parking. So urban parking problems have to be for different people. So Hong Kong had 3 types of buses. Blue bus is normal. Aapka fixed spot set. Stop say time hai, fair hai. Red has time is there, but it's only stop the ending and thing is fixed, but it can skip in between stops and the fare varies. The green bus is more interesting. The green bus is meant for off-peak time. The red bus is more for peak time, hubs. Green bus is for retired people, and it has a flexible route. So it has the main road, but lots of people have apartments or houses, and Hong Kong is very steep. Kowloon and Hong Kong, very steep. 100 meters walking up with a shopping bag, you will start panting. So you pay $1 extra, the bus will, it's a short bus, 30, 40 people will go drop you right at your house. So it's a very flexible, it's a taxi, but a larger taxi. So this is the way in which problems get solved bottom up. These are not regulated by the government, and I will come back to it. And I will talk about material constraints, which control a lot of things. Many of us understand US, and we have a model, and we have wrong ideas about China, that it is dictatorial, it controls. Actually, China is far more capitalistic and far more decentralized than you may imagine. And I'll give you some examples, but I don't know how many of you are aware, and I have chosen this example of Tencent and Alibaba, both are very large organizations. Tencent, of course, invests a lot. So Byju's or Shopee or Kata, Flipkart, all investments. And in fact, Dream 11, which is the IPL sponsor last year, also has significant money from Tencent. Alibaba, of course, runs. So the thing to understand is that almost 80% of payments are done through the digital networks of Alibaba, Alipay, and WeChat. And WeChat is far more advanced than any other app that Facebook or Skype or Twitter has. So almost a million users, a billion users use them, 4 to 6 hours a day, 90 texts. Delivery of packages, the physical package delivery, 90% is done by Alibaba and Tencent. It's not the Chinese post is completely irrelevant. So this is the reason that Chinese Communist Party was very concerned, and they have been concerned for about 4 years. There is a policy paper. I was part of a study group for TIFAC, and we have recommended some changes from there. Chinese policy making is very, very pragmatic and very incremental. They don't do one big thing like farm laws for everyone in a bank. They will try in one city, one state, then they will learn, they will experiment. So all the regulation you are seeing on Alibaba, Tencent has been 6-7 years in the making. Very incremental, very thin, but the scale of private sector in China is enormous. That is the thing I would like you to recognize. And there are lots of variations. The biggest innovation China has done is selling mutual funds through celebrity video casting. They blog, they video cast. It's an enormous market. And this is room for India. We should not believe that the state has to do everything. A lot of it can be done through other solutions. So I will come to my theme, and I am quoting Arthur C. Clarke, who of course was in Sri Lanka when he wrote it. Any sufficiently advanced technology is magic. And we all know AI, artificial intelligence, but the most extraordinary technology is material science. You take your phone camera, Gorilla Glass. It can withstand shocks. It can withstand temperature differences, humidity, underwater, and it costs a fraction of what it would have taken in the past. Nuclear submarines have an inertial navigation system, and Shishadrisha would know that, and it is $1 billion. It is a thing. A smartphone today can rival a thing at a fraction of a cost, and it doesn't need GPS. A lot of technology has their terrestrial radio networks and Bluetooth, and in future quantum geometry and gravity sensing and all that, they can do it faster and cheaper. $2, $1 billion. A nuclear submarine will take about 20 minutes from boot up to be able to lock into a thing. This will do within a minute. So consumer electronics is so far advanced that the US Department of Defense has requested Congress that they should be allowed to use consumer electronics in military technology, and that's happening. I think now I will come to my main thesis, which is the driver. So values is basically the religion angle, identity, consumerization, etc. Political power is the state, and we have democracy and feudalism, capitalism. Economy, we understand, experience, innovation. Technology is the largest force for change. Over the last 300 years, history is written typically with rulers and other things, but technology is driving society. Today, it's the single largest force for change. And you can see that happening in what Future Shock, which is a 50-year-old book, talks about it. If you look at society, everybody is not at the same axis on anything in terms of digital literacy, as Kumar talked about, or financial inclusion, or entrepreneurship, etc. People are at a different scale. But the society, the median, I'm not talking average. Averages don't take outliers. The median, let's say, the center. And some segments will be 3 to 5 years ahead of time, and some segments will be 7 to 10 years behind. That is the cluster. Future Shock talks about the speed at which this is changing, that even people who are in the center feel they're lost out. Too many things are changed. Too many things don't fit the current model. And with COVID, with the warfare in Europe, I mean, we are going back to 40 years old geopolitics, where sovereign nations can be invaded and all that, and enormous amount of things are happening. So Future Shock is here, and therefore changing which Future Shock needs us to let go of command control. No one person can process all the information and variety and come back with a balanced decision. We have to experiment. We have to allow people to do experiments, which is what Hong Kong does, much more than Singapore does. And there are different ways of thinking it. When you merge the politics and values, this is an Israel type, so Jewish ideology. When you merge politics, economy, axis, that is China, state economy. And when you merge technology and economy, which is the part I play in, I call it technonomy. And that is decentralized technology. That's where the crypto economy is taking over. And which one will win? No clear answer. China has clearly won in a firewall, centralized economy doing well. And the technology is probably going to win. There is plenty of evidence that the decentralized nature of internet, Web3, anybody can be a video blogger. You can replace Times of India or with a newscast, or you can blog, you can write. So the consumerization technology is also very great. Peer-to-peer networks are also rising a lot. I give an example of the problem it creates. This is something that I spent a lot of time with DOT 3 years back on trying to think that sectoral regulation does not work. Things are changing a lot. We are used to telecom license being licensed and done. But there is an enormous new technology, sub-gigahertz, which is LoRaWAN, which smart cities are using, a satellite-based network. And 3 years ago, when we talked about this feature, there was a report which we were helping prepare. I was laughed at, satellite kya karega? But today, gigabyte broadband can come from near Earth satellites. There are 22 startups in India. Can you imagine? There's one startup I'm mentoring, plans to launch about 90 satellites. It just costs $25,000 nano. I mean, the technology is changing the cost and value proposition. So there is a large case for private cellular networks. Many parks, ports, industrial townships, IoT4, in Europe, in the US, are going for private cellular networks. This is not yet permitted in India, which is the case we were having, because innovation will happen. If I don't want to wait for Jio or Reliance, I can commission a private network in my neighborhood, in my township, etc. Ultimately, now Jio is also going for satellite, so this will happen. The regulatory mirage in India is very large because we have sectoral regulation which fails. So is LIC regulated by insurance? Not really now. Is it a bank? It has a lot of banks. Is it a listed company, or is it above regulation because it's a state-owned entity? Right now it's the last one. But these are things where we need to be future-proof. Regulation should be by activity, not by sector intent. You must be aware that we are living in a volatile and very complex, very agile and uncertainty, but adaptation of technology is very fast. Kumar talked about it. So India runs on Chai, WhatsApp, and UPI. Look at the adaptation rate of these technologies because they solve problems. People adapt. So adaptation of technology which solves their problems is very fast. You don't have to mandate. You just have to reduce the onboarding cost and make it happen. So the central part of what I'm saying is covered by this book. And if you have any questions, do ask me. Kumar has given more time. I'm planning to speak for about 30-35 minutes, and then we will question. So you feel free. There is a book called War Fighting. It's the official manual of the U.S. Marine Corps. It's a slim book and well worth reading. And this is a comment, Goodreads, and it's well worth reading. Because the US Marine Corps does not use command control. It's an extremely decentralized, extremely flexible organization. It talks about people are not interchangeable. Just because everybody's used uniform, gives salute, they're not interchangeable. People have different strengths. Teams take time to gel. And nobody can maintain maximum performance. And you cannot give micro information. You cannot wait for sensing and control command. In a fog of war, the officer on the ground should have complete authority. So you give long-term goals. And in 15 seconds of the war starting, 15 minutes of the war starting, it has changed a lot. And things have to change. So this is a very decentralized organization. So a modern army has to be extremely decentralized, extremely flexible, and use different techniques for different sectors. That is the case I'm making, that decentralized technology is the future for a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. Let me give an example from technology. If you look at the large listed companies, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Baidu, Tencent, a lot of their valuation comes from AI and big data technology. Almost all of this is open source, and most of them come from this penguin thing called Linux. 1994, there are 4,000 volunteers who contribute and make it. Microsoft Balmer called it evil, but Microsoft now is a platinum sponsor. It runs almost every industrial appliance, every smart appliance that you see, including your routers and Wi-Fi routers, everything is based on Linux. And it's an amazing model of bottom-up collaboration, but major effect. And Bollywood is this thing. I call it the Ajanta moment. So if you go to Ajanta, they are beautiful paintings. Must have taken decades for them to build. But you won't find artist names. It is done, patrons have funded it. It is done anonymously. It's a creative common good. So this is the common good. So there is a way of funding these volunteers, Gitcoin and crypto and others, they are there. But the scale of impact that volunteers and decentralized organizations can achieve is enormous. There are technology, Linux coordinates through Gitcoin and all that is there. Let me turn towards the hangama in India, where taxes are collected and the government tries to do everything, even social philanthropy. The private sector does far more and is far more effective than the government is. Akshay Patra, millions of people are fed. It's a private sector thing. Langas, Gurudwara, Dhan Foundation, one of our friends at IIM runs it. Thousands of schools in Madurai. Zoho, which is a startup which is done. Sridhar Vembu is setting it up in villages and rural areas. We have 100 TV channels. You have a choice. They won't survive. They will survive. I don't know. But there is tremendous amount of philanthropy that is happening with private and without private. I don't know if you're aware of the Ugly Indians. There are volunteer groups. Like my apartment complex in front, it has got mess, a lot of things. The Ugly Indians took it up, they cleaned it up, they painted it, and they read it. Social Alpha, it's a Tata Sons, it's actually a VC, but it doesn't operate VC. Social Impact. Manoj, who's my friend, runs it, and they are helping a lot of things. So healthcare, disabled, agri, etc. These are viability gaps because technology will not become economically viable to scale for social things. So 7 or 8 years, the price at which the consumer needs to get free or something and the price of manufacture are different. So you fund it. As the technology adoption goes in, the price of producing will go down and the consumer benefits the quality, pays more. This is how water came in. You pay 20 rupees for a water cup and you pay cents for free water. So there's a difference in price and scale, but quality water at a railway station happened because viability gap was funded. So a lot of things can be solved through problem solvers. There is the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, which is trying to do it. Take TikTok, which was banned. It's all over. It's from every class, level class 3 of India, class 2, class 1. So this is what we are saying, that people are a different type. Some are very money oriented, but there are a set of people who wish to achieve likes, philanthropy, social impact. I see a lot of the entrepreneurs in the IT industry, even salaried staff, are contributing. They contribute to social causes. Making it easier, you can achieve a lot. Let me sum up by giving an example of 2 areas. I was charge of a group which did a report for TIFAC, and we submitted this thing, so I borrowed from it. We should allow problem solvers to solve problems. If you look at the India consumer startup stack, the first trillion economy is as small as Mexico, 110 million people. And that's where a lot of startups have gone. That is where Ola, OU, etc. went. The second set is now happening, which is the 300 billion GDP, about 104 million, like Philippines. That is where Share It and a lot of things are happening, Katabook, etc. The third sector, which is the $1 billion, that is also happening. If you look at the investments in agri, etc., huge amount of things are happening, and all that is happening. All this will happen. And there is a change in value perception. COVID has hit it, but the consumer activity, the oversourced is happening. So, for example, you don't have to spend $1 trillion making manufacturing capacity to compete against China. That's not the way to go. You take artists, creators, artisans, enable them with 3D printing, technology, etc., and they will survive. You don't have to make large-scale things. Our play is not economics of scale, but economics of variety. We will do a different types of economics, making similar things, artistic creation, changing. That is where our IT BPO had that. And look at mRNA. I mean, life sciences, during the COVID passion-driven thing, there's tremendous thing that India can do in life sciences, personalized medicine, etc. So our approach should not be mass commercialization, which is the US model and which is the Chinese model. Our scale should be economics of variety, of doing similar things differently with small tweaks, artistic, creative, and crypto economy supports it. And we can talk about it because it allows the data owner to control. I mean, if you take, there is a crypto protocol called audio. It lets people stream music. So like Spotify, etc. type. The difference is in a Spotify distribution or Hollywood distribution, the artists get only about 5 to 10% of the take. But in the audio or royalties, the crypto economies, the entire rest, the artist gets about 80 to 90%. The rest of the economy because the cost of distribution is. So the crypto economy is completely decentralizing and data owners are getting a much larger slice of the value and a much larger global community. And that's the way to think about it. I don't know why the RBI is worried about crypto, because frequent flyer airlines or postal stamps did not upset a 5 trillion economy. So monopolies have to learn to compete. The crypto economy will reduce the ability of RBI to keep printing currency and changing interest rates. They will have to compete. They will have to offer value. We can meet all these expectations. We can be economically productive, socially just. We can go up the curve. These are the social development goals. All of this is possible. Not by every project, but different projects will do different things. There are a lot of social impact innovation. If you take healthcare, there are Indian startups which are doing eye tests for, cancer tests, etc., or radiological tests at a fraction, 100 rupees may radiologist, and in fact, the world is now following them. So the value parameter with technology, the scale can be completely different, and we can deliver a lot. What is required? If there are no questions, I will go to the more controversial part of my statements. And I will think
questions, we'll take it at the end, Arvind.
All right, no problem. Just let me drink a little bit.
Sure.
What we need to understand is that private wealth exceeds that of the state in a good economy. If we stop trying to curtail formal, informal taxation, and these are debates, but we are killing our Indian economy by reducing GDP growth from 8% in 2016 to 4% in 2019 and negative. It's a self-created amputation. Private wealth should be much larger than the state, and it will do good. Elon Musk is a single competitor to China. वो SpaceX करता है, Tesla EV करता है, Boring करता है, neurological machine बनाता है. Exceeds NASA, exceeds this. So geniuses should be encouraged, and they will create wealth. Let them create wealth. Non-state actors are the drivers, whether it is warfare, I mean ISI, fundamentalists, etc., or media, or innovation, or it is not the state. State has the ability to curtail, has the ability to send the police, has the ability to do a lot of things, but it does not create wealth. Today, I mean, a lot of times in the past they have done it, so it was a very good activity, but primarily impulse of the state is to control, to clobber, and that is not good. Lot of our legal policies are absolutely outmoded for current things. So for example, Ola drivers, are they employees, are they freelancers? They are somewhere in between. So a lot of the new framework, we should think not in terms of laws which are frozen in stone for 20 years, but small experimentation. Allow some states to work out different models of doing it so that these things can be then sorted out. Mass affluence is possible, frictionless adoption, and this is a quote. Why should we make policies by guesswork? Why don't we do a feedback loop, do something for 2-3 years, sandbox, and then modify, and then modify and bring it up? And this is the whole experimentation in technology. You don't try to make everything in one go. You do agile movements. No, you do small things, 6 months, 2 months, etc., and you keep changing. What are the things that would make a difference? Work from home, the city center is less important. This is one of the big things that has happened. There is a very classic study for Seoul, which has much more higher density, where the cost of staying near the city center so that you can go to the office and commute was a big problem. It took up 30% of people's cost. But now with this thing, they are staying further, metro stations, etc. The cost of the suburban areas has gone, but overall, and they can actually have more savings even with the lesser salary from the offices. So most companies, they're letting you work further away. Salaries are not getting changed, but you may not get promotions, increment in salary fast. So over 3 to 4 years, guys living outside Seoul will start earning less salaries, but they will still save more. You can make vertical villages, prosumers, 3D printing, etc. So and no need to finance hard assets. Mahendra Dhoni comes from Ranchi, which is my hometown. He's a brand. Can you imagine? Virat Kohli, aggressive, but he's the brand. और भारत पे का जो है वो अभी sack हो गया. I mean fraud allegation. But you need aggressive brands. You cannot compete in today's world without a different set of cultures and values, which will then succeed. We need experimentation. So land records, it's a mess in India because you pay property tax, but the government does not assure you that the land is yours. You will have to go to court and fight for lots of areas. Ridiculous government. पैसा भी लेता है और कुछ काम भी नहीं करता है. I mean, you have to force the government to take ownership. If you are collecting property taxes, you certify the land. You assure property ownership. Urban local bodies. This is a joke. Panchayats have more power than mayors in a city. Bangalore ka BPMP, BESCOM. I mean, electricity is supplied by one unit, controlled by the central state government. Water is by someone else. This thing. I mean, how can you have urban local bodies work? And urbanization is the core to economic activity. 80% of India's economic value added comes from the city centers. They don't come from villages. I mean, agricultural economy and all that. So we have to focus on, and therefore, decentralization. We did a project for smart cities, smart street lights. You move the street lights out of the electricity authorities, make it a common network, lights, sensors, air pollution, etc. You can achieve a lot. Ugly Indians should be able to bid for projects. Associations, citizens should be able to bid for projects and do L1 tender, etc. should do. Look at the jobs being created. Ola, Zomato, Denso, etc. The amount of jobs they have created is large, and much more can be done. So we have to be able to do this, and this is the future. So if we reorient our way from command control and one rule fits one. So for example, one rule fits one. You take India. We are a large economy, very little diversity. Vegetarian है, non-veg है, but high sugar, diabetics के लिए ज़्यादा choice नहीं है. Those who are who have a problem with wheat, I mean, they're not much option. So we don't have variety in consumers, variety. We have a one-side truthful. We have to change. That would be my area. I will stop here and we will take questions. Hi.
Okay, your presentation is through? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So it's open. Anybody who wants to, for this one, just put up your hand and raise your question. Unfortunately, I'm relatively illiterate in this matter, so my power even to regulate, as he disdainfully calls it, is very limited here. So I won't even do this one. But in fact, Arvindji, you will be pleasantly surprised to know that Telangana, about 3 days back, have started issuing e-land pattas and e-land documents.
IIT Kanpur is involved in this project. Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's good. And one of the suggestions I had also given to one of the governments with whom I had a small fling is that the stamp duty should go in total. It should be replaced by a yearly collection of 0.25% or 0.5% or something, which will have insurance thrown in. That within a year, if your title is not settled, the land value will be made good to you types.
All these things are very easy once we move to decentralized blockchain crypto economy. But coming to the e-thing, Telangana, Tamil Nadu has the best policy of using blockchain technology centers. Karnataka has the best sandbox policy. There is an official sandbox you can create. So states are beginning to implement. If we allow the courts not to try to do uniformity, I'm amazed at the judges, Supreme Court trying to put down one law for every state. We should allow states to have different laws. We should let states experiment. We will learn what works, what doesn't work. And cultures are different. What may work in Bangalore may not work in Sikkim. So we should allow diversity to do. But there is tremendous room for hope because we have to create jobs. We have an explosion on our hand if we don't create enough jobs. And we have to figure out how to do it.